All right, everybody. So good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, depending on where you're joining us in the world today from today. Thank you for joining and welcome to Busy, Successful, and Exposed: The Power of Zero. Joined today with my good friend John Browning. Let me first introduce, I guess, myself and kind of what we're doing today. So I'm Bernie DeSantis. I'm the owner and CEO of Insignia Training Partners. We help our clients host virtual events that don't suck. So I'm excited to work with John, and I encourage you guys to ask questions in the chat, participate in the few polling activities that we have. We'll certainly have time for a few questions at the end, and I encourage you guys to be as engaged as possible. John's got some good stuff to talk about. So I'll be your producer. If you guys do run into any issues with Zoom, the platform itself, just reach out to me in the chat, and I'll work with you on the side. Having said that, I've known John for a bit now. I think close to 2 years actually. And I can tell you that he's not your typical financial advisor. He's on a mission to cure the world of average financial advice. The stuff that really hasn't changed in the last 30 years, even though the market and the world absolutely has changed dramatically. John's approach I have found to be different. After nearly 3 decades on Wall Street, he was at one point managing, what was it, John, $157 billion?
That was my top amount. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So he saw firsthand really how outdated the standard advice is, and he wanted to change that. So John founded Guardian Rock Wealth. He's using that wealth of experience, you probably catch the pun in there, to empower everyday people like you and me with clear, practical, and not so standard financial guidance. He's proud father 6, grandfather of, is it 4 or 5 now?
Four. Yeah.
4? Okay, 4 now.
Yeah.
And still finds time to do his 10-minute market update. You can catch it on all of the available podcast channels. Build Your Life with John Browning. Today's session is about rethinking your approach to money, breaking free from outdated strategies, helping you to build wealth intentionally and with some confidence. So I'll just pass it right over to you now, John. Let's rock and roll, my friend.
All right. Well, thanks for showing up, and I'm excited to talk to you tonight about a lot of the things that you just may not be hearing about, just may not be aware of. And one of the things I always like to do is have you put in the chat, what's your zone of genius? What are you good at? What's the best thing you do? Because it's always interesting to me to see all the different types of people that we get on the call and all that. Just throw that in the chat. What is it you do better than most people? Because that's part of what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about what your zone of genius is, what you truly enjoy, and that's what you're going to be good at, frankly. And as I kind of walked through my journey, one of the things that really stood out to me as I was going through my Wall Street career is at the beginning of that, I was chasing the portfolio, I was chasing the money, and I ended up missing a lot of first pitches from my kids, a lot of wrestling meets because I was on the road chasing the dollar and I wasn't building my best life. Hence the beginnings in the back of my mind, even as I went through that experience on Wall Street, the idea of build a life, not a portfolio, came to mind. And that's where the book comes from. And, the book is a book for really all ages. And, there are some folks in my family that really enjoy this. I mean, so much so that they brought out the popcorn. They love to read this when they're going to bed, and you can see that in the
Hey, John,
slides there.
sorry, you got to pull up the deck. You're not sharing right
Oh well, so here we go. I guess to see glitch number one. Can everybody see that there? So those are my grandchildren, yes, and they absolutely love the book Build a Life, Not a Portfolio, if you can't tell. But seriously, it is an easy read. I hope that you get a copy of it and read it. It's not something I make a lot of money on. It is available on Amazon. And if you stay to the end, not only is the very last thing I'm going to share with you something that I am guessing you have not heard of yet, but you'll also have an opportunity to get a copy of the book along with a lot of other free materials and information that I think you'll find really, really helpful. The idea tonight is to really talk about things that if you're busy and you're successful and you're great at doing what you're doing, you're probably not thinking about. One of the things is we're going to talk about the greatest trick ever played, that I think is the greatest trick ever played on the American public. We're going to talk about the idea that the government actually has a lien on your assets. If you didn't know that, we're going to talk about exactly what that means and what is the real root cause of why people sometimes run out of money. Even people who have high incomes and they're very successful, they still worry about running out of money, and sometimes they do. And it might not be what you think. And we're going to talk about the big shift that happened a long time ago, but yet we're still hearing about the things that worked before that big shift. And then we're going to talk about your risks. And remember that when you're working on your wealth management, you're planning for the future, if you go risk free, that's one reason that people run out of money. So you can never eliminate the risks, you can only mitigate the risk. So, what are some of the things that we talk about? The number one goal, right, is to create your own personal paycheck protection plan, because I don't think it's going to happen again where we get that from the government. And of course, wouldn't it be nice if you actually had a paycheck along with that paycheck? And I think most of us on the call understand the idea of inflation. How many understand what inflation is and have seen their costs go up over the past few years? Right? I think most of us understand that. And we're going to talk about longevity risk, because the truth is, and the stats tell us, that we are living longer. And when you live longer, if you're like me, my knees don't work as well as they did once before. I no longer jump down from the bed of my pickup truck because that looks really dangerous to me. It didn't 20 years ago. It looked like, why wouldn't you? But things start to break, things start not to work so well. And the thing is, we never know when that's going to happen. Just to tell you a quick story, this is a true story, happened on my watch, so to speak. There was a wonderful lady that was walking down the middle of a road here in Florida called Okeechobee Boulevard. It's a very busy road. Just walking along, and the police officer stopped and said, just to check on her, say, hey, you okay? She was dressed really nicely in great clothes and everything else like that. Well, it turns out she was completely convinced, and you couldn't convince her otherwise, that it was, I think it was 1976. Now, 3 days ago, she had been talking with her neighbors down in Boca Raton, Florida, in a very nice neighborhood, very nice house. Everything was going fine. She's now under guardianship. We managed to get her. I was part of the whole process. We got her into a place that could take care of her, memory care facility. But she hadn't really done any planning for that event. My point is, things can be going absolutely wonderfully right now. They may not be going wonderfully tomorrow. It's not something we like to think about, but it's a reality that we have to live with, and a potential. We're going to talk about sequence of returns risk. And some of you on the call, because I saw there's a CPA out there, there's a couple people that probably already understand what this is, but we're going to try and make it real, because it's a little bit of a difficult thing to think about. And then the most important risk, and the risk that I think is probably the number one reason that people go broke in retirement, and that's procrastination risk. I had a recent client come on board, and I had spoken with them over 3 years ago. And just because I like personal pain, I calculated what they could have saved in taxes had we convinced them not to, frankly, procrastinate, because they called me 3 years later when it was 2 months away from retirement. Not nearly as much I can do for them as far as saving money on taxes as I could have 3 years ago. I calculated it would have been right around $102,000 in lifetime taxes that we could have saved for them just by doing some planning. that not right now, I'll do it later, or I can learn it on YouTube, right? We can learn anything on YouTube, right? So let's play the YouTube game. So in the chat, everybody up for a game? Come on. Everybody up for a game? All right. So the YouTube game is
Yes,
I've got a
yes.
clogged. Yes, we got a clogged sink. Is that something you might want to go on YouTube and try and figure out how to do for yourself? Put a yes in the chat if that's the case for you.
Nope.
All right. So now let's go a little bit more intense here. You guys, something's going wrong with the car. It's making a weird sound. You're not sure what's going on, but mechanics are expensive because they have a zone of genius that I frankly don't have, especially on today's cars. But it's just a noise. So would you go on YouTube for that to see if you could figure it out? Just put a yes. I would do that in the chat. All right. Or a no. If you say no stinking way, I would go on YouTube and try and figure that out. All right. So one more. So you and a group of friends have decided and you're excited about it. I know some of you maybe not so much, but you're excited about this. Just imagine with me for a minute. You're going to go and you're going to do some parachuting. You're going to jump out of a plane. You're going to go on YouTube to figure out how to pack your chute. Yes or no in the chat. I'm just guessing. I haven't read all the responses. I'm guessing maybe not YouTube for that one. And yet we try and do some things by watching YouTube videos. And I put a lot of content out on YouTube too to help people out that want to do it that way. This is the rest of your life. You are going to depend upon this tool that we call money once you stop formal work for the rest of your life. How important is that to you? And is it your zone of genius that you put in the chat before to do your own wealth management? And for some people it is. And for you, if you're on the call tonight, I'm happy for that. I'm also happy to spend some time with you if you just want some more information. This is not something where you have to sign up to work with John Browning or Guardian Rock Wealth. This really is to get the information out there. So the most misunderstood part of wealth management, in my opinion, is cash flow. And yes, I came up with this all by myself. No matter the weather, cash flow is better. And that doesn't matter if you are 30 years old or if you are 80 years old. It is more important as you get older and into retirement. But even when you are younger, when the market is moving against you, it is really powerful to actually have a portion of your portfolio that is providing consistent cash flow. It fuels stability and fuels future growth. And it's probably the most misunderstood part of wealth management, how to do it. It's not just bonds, it's not just dividend paying stocks. There are other ways to generate significantly more income into your portfolio than you would with just those traditional things that we always think about. So here's where we start talking about the power of zero. This is where it starts. Number one, plan early and prepare. That's number one. It's not just about tax loss harvesting. Some of you know what that means. And if you don't know what that means, again, there's going to be an opportunity at the end where we can spend some time and talk about some of these things. You're like, wait, what's he talking about? If there's something like that, we're going to have time for questions at the end. And again, at the end, you're going to have an opportunity to get some free material and some time with me if you'd like. And I don't do the sales pitch thing. It's just not what I do. So that time on the phone with me is just going to be giving you some clarity for moving forward. But it's not just about those things that we tend to hear a lot about. There's also this thing called insurance, and everybody cringes, right? Nobody wants to talk about insurance. And what I find is that just as many people have too little insurance as they have too much insurance. So how do you solve for that problem? And it's not just for insurance sake, but it can be used as a really powerful tool to get yourself to a 0% tax bracket in retirement. It's not for everyone, but as a portion of your portfolio, it can serve a powerful purpose. Strategically shifting where the cash flow comes in versus where growth happens can get you to, again, that idea of a 0% tax bracket in retirement. IRS Rule T72, you accountants on the call probably know what this is, but it's a way for you, even if you're not 59 and a half, to get yourself to that 0% tax bracket by conversion to a Roth much earlier than most people think. And again, I want you to think about this. This is a really key point. Over there on the other side of the screen, it's not about minimizing this year's taxes. Most people want to minimize this year's taxes. It's about true wealth management, and ultra high net worth people already know this. It's about minimizing your lifetime taxes. So here's another thing about not taking risks. So it's really popular now to do a high yield savings account. And I think they actually dipped below 4% here recently, but this is a bit of a trap, I think. No, it's not a bad thing. And again, as I'm going to say repeatedly, there's no like evil product or bad thing. It's just there's different tools in your toolbox. So you use them in the proper proportion to your strategy. So think about it. If you're getting a 4% on your high yield savings account, but you're in the 24% tax rate and you're fighting against 3% inflation, you're actually left with about 0.04% real return in your pocket that you keep. Has anybody ever thought about that? It feels really good, right? To have those high yield savings accounts. And again, they're not a bad thing. They serve a potential purpose, maybe for that emergency fund or something like that. But it's not really getting you ahead of the game. So if you had this guy and you're getting ready to get on a plane, would you want to know that this guy had a systematic process? Yeah, kind of would, right? Well, why is that? Because you're going to be how many thousand feet up in the air, and you want to make sure this was done right. You want to make sure he's got a checklist and he's going through a process to make sure that engine stays on while you are up in the air. And again, I make that analogy because so many of us just think retirement and wealth management in your future is just going to happen without that systematic process. And it will still happen, but will it happen, and will they be your golden years, or will they be your tin or aluminum years, right? You want them to be your best life.
John, we're at about 50% on the poll. So we got a quick poll here, guys. When it comes to your financial planning, which of these best describes you? I have a clear documented strategy I review regularly. I've started planning, but I need to refine or revisit it. I know I need a plan, but haven't made time yet, or I prefer to learn as I go. So I'll give you guys a few more seconds to respond to that. Continue forward.
Just curious as to what the results of that is. You think about this and you know, what if you just wing it, right? It's like you can do it. You can do it. I know a lot of people that do it. And if I'm just walking, say 200 yards, no big deal, right? You're off maybe a foot, not even a foot, if you're off by 1 degree. But retirement's a long game. You know, the idea is that you're going to be around for a long time. So if you're going to circle the globe and you're 1 degree off, you're going to be 400 miles away from your target. And if you don't even know what the target is, then, well, that's even worse, right? So what did the poll say?
Yeah, you got about 70%, 64% says that I've started planning, but I need to refine or revisit it. And then 36%, I know I need to plan, but really haven't made the time yet.
That procrastination risk, right? Now you're just offended like that percentage of you. So don't be offended. You're in good company in the world today. Most people put this off. They think it's too hard. They think they don't have time because they're too busy. There's lots of reasons. Life gets in the way. One of the things that I try and tell people is that within No, it's not like Geico. It's not like 15 minutes can change your life with wealth management, but I will tell you that there's some upfront time investment, but around an hour can get you started really, really well. So you think about that, an hour investment can really kick it off. It's not that expensive in your cost of time. There's a little bit of things that you have to do again at the beginning, but then refining it. If you choose to go and work with somebody whose zone of genius, I don't have many zones of genius, by the way. My wife can tell you that. But one of them happens to be something I've done for 34 years, and that is working with wealth management. So if you choose to work with somebody like that, there's really not a lot that you need to do after that other than understanding what the person is doing. And that's again where we're getting to today or tonight. So again, remember the good old days. How many people remember the good old days? Probably not that many on this call because we're not that old, right? But for decades there was this thing called the pension. And this was this security blanket. And my dad likes to tell me a lot how he's made more money now, significantly more money now than he ever made his entire career working for Columbia Natural Gas because of his pension. Well, today, in today's world, there's very little in the way of pensions. And where there are pensions, they're not the same as they used to be. This was the idea: you got an annuity when you retired, and you probably even got a gold watch. I didn't even get a gold watch, and I'm kind of old. So I don't have a pension plan, and I'm kind of in that, I'm Generation X. Yeah, yeah, right, Don. What is that? A swatch? I don't know. It's not a gold watch, though, not the same. But there was this big shift. There was a shift in responsibility. So at one point, you had a whole group of people that their zone of genius was to manage money and to manage the pensions. And suddenly, right around the late 1970s, you had a big shift in responsibility to who? You. You had a shift in responsibility to you. Now, you're a great plumber, you're a great CPA, you're a great lawyer, doctor, whatever your zone of genius is, but you're doing that to make the money that you need to invest. It's not your zone of genius, but they shifted the responsibility to this, and this idea, this allure of deferred taxes came to being in 1978. And back then, it was a great idea because where were tax rates in 1978? Well, I'll tell you a quick story. There's a very famous person, very famous movie star, who would only do 2 movies per year back in this time period. The reason for that was he made about $100,000 per movie. Things have changed, right? They make a lot more than that now, but back then, that's how much he made. When he calculated that, along with living in California with high tax rates, some of you on the call are from California and you understand what that means. Others of us who live in Florida are like, why do you live in California? No, I'm kidding. It's okay. You live in California. Richard, we love you. So, so this person said, I'm at 90% taxes if I make any more. So why would I work? And so deferring your taxes made a lot of sense back then, right? And who knows who that person was? Put it in the chat. I'll give you 5 seconds to put it in the chat if you know who that was. Ronald Reagan was who that was. True story. So this idea of deferred taxes is, again, this idea that the government has a lien on your 401k. And those of you who are lawyers on the call, I put the definition of a lien right there so you can see that the government really does have a lien on your traditional IRA and 401k assets. And here's the other problem, is that the game is always changing. You've got this complex game that we're playing right now, and over any given year, you're going to have a few changes, but over the past, every 10 years, you have some major tax changes. You've got to try and keep up with all of this. And the reality is, though we complain about it today, 37% maximum tax bracket federally is actually historically dare I say, not that bad. So is deferring taxes an outdated idea, or is it still a good idea? And the answer is it kind of depends on your situation and how much math you're willing to do and are ready to do. So that was all tough. That was difficult. So we've come down to the place where we need to take a deep breath. Nobody likes to talk about this stuff. So we bring in some cute animals. All right. Enough of that. Time to get back to work.
John,
So
we
you
got
got
the
three
poll
choices.
running, buddy.
One, do nothing, continue, defer your taxes. And as those assets grow, your tax problem, frankly, gets a little bigger, right? Or two, pay taxes now, known rates. You could just convert the whole thing to a Roth, so to speak. Probably not your best idea, but you could. Or three, use some strategies that can reduce your taxes, possibly even getting you to a 0% tax bracket in retirement. We'll talk about the math of how powerful that is in just a minute. But here are just some of the things that you can do for tax efficient planning. And I think we've got another poll, don't we?
Yep.
Coming up.
John, it's been running. We got about 50% have responded so far. But right now, most people seem to think that tax rates are going to be about the same. So if you guys haven't responded, think any differently, let us know what your thoughts are there.
Okay. And nobody likes to talk about taxes. We got some more cute animals here. So while we're waiting, yeah. But you think about that. So if we think that rates are going to remain the same, then even if we're wrong, right? But say they do stay the same, you know, the idea is you're growing your assets as you go along. So that's increasing. What's a percentage of a bigger number? It's a bigger number, right? So you're going to pay bigger lifetime taxes if you're going to defer them and you're going to grow your assets along the way. I have individuals now that are worried about, you know, paying too much taxes this year or whatever, and we are not even keeping up with their gains when we do the tax conversion because they're just so afraid to pay that much in taxes now, but they're at least not exacerbating the problem because they are working on it. But as your assets grow, the problem gets bigger for taxes. So it just involves basic math. The reality of it is, even if I made what I would consider to be probably a bad decision, I had $1 million and everything being equal on both sides of this, and I decided just to convert everything to a Roth IRA, which is tax-free forever. All the growth, all the income coming into a Roth is tax-free forever once you convert it. So I just decided to pay $372,000 this year, and then all things being equal, the guy next to me, Richard, I'm gonna pick on Richard because Richard and I know each other. So Richard decides, you're nuts. I'm no way I'm paying $372,000 this year. That's crazy. And he'd be right because there's better ways to do it. But just say he did. So he keeps he's going to grow at that same 8% growth rate. So he's going to have a bigger nut here in 10 years or so when we retire. I'm going to have a smaller one because my 8% was growing on a smaller number, $372,000 less. And he's still thinking, he's great. I'm nuts. What was I doing? But I'm planning on living longer than 4 years after I retire. So what happens? Well, in year one, he still thinks I'm nuts. Year two, he still kind of thinks I'm nuts. Year three, he's pretty smart and he's starting to do the math. And what he realizes is that I'm coming up and he's going down. And in year number 4 and every single year thereafter, I pull ahead of him every single year in terms of the cash I can take out at that 4% withdrawal rate. Because even if he's paying a 15% tax rate in retirement, and I paid 37% several years ago. That's how powerful the math is on this. But it's very difficult when you're faced with this year, how much money I have to pay in taxes. So this idea of lifetime taxes and switching the mindset from this year's taxes to lifetime taxes makes a huge difference. And yes, how and when you convert matters. So working with somebody who understands this process and how it works and when to convert, when maybe not to convert or skip a year, those type of things, using Rule T72 of the IRS code very carefully and following all the rules, all of that matters. But the tax advantages are enormous. And with that, when you get to Social Security, you get to plan for that as well. The other thing that I'm just going to mention here real quick, that third bullet point there, you see, it's going to increase. It's not may increase. I say that all the time because the compliance guys get on me, but it will increase. The higher your income is once you turn 65, it's not just federal income taxes you're paying, you're also paying higher Medicare taxes. And there's really not a way to avoid that. It's mandatory to sign up for Medicare. I don't know if you knew that. If you don't, there's some significant penalties. So that's another thing to consider, and why you want to get to 0% tax bracket. So there's all kinds of tax reduction strategies. Here are some of them. Another thing that I'm always amazed that high earners don't do more of is purchase tax credits. That can significantly reduce your tax burden. And they're not that hard. People think, oh, that's got to be really hard. It's not that hard to do if you've got a good CPA. The next topic here, let's get off of taxes. Let's relax a little bit and let's talk about the storms that come inevitably. My belief is, and my experience is, that you can build wealth in any market if you prepare, stay consistent, and disciplined. And I know that's kind of bad to think about, especially when we're on such a bull run now in the market. You know, we don't like to think about the storms, but they will come. They come every year. I know it's really hard to remember back all the way to April, but we had a pretty massive downturn in April of this year. And they do happen literally every year. And some years, of course, as you know, are worse than others. So this is sequence of returns risk. And it's still very difficult to really explain, but say you were unlucky and you retired in 1999. Well, if you remember, in 1999 was followed by 3 years in a row of double-digit negative years. So if you're pulling out money to fund your mortgage, your car payment, your groceries, whatever it is, every year, and the market is also going down, and it's going down by double digits, what happens to your, say, $1 million that you've saved up? It goes down a lot faster. Not just goes down, but you're also withdrawing money out. And then what happens? You have less money to recover from that. So somebody who retired in 1999 pulls out, say, 5% per year. Annual withdrawal actually begins to run out of money in 2018. And that's using actual just S&P 500 if they use no strategy at all or anything like that. That's the power of sequence of return. Now, if you flip that over, so you think you take your rates from last year, 2004, you retired then, and then you work back to 1999, what do you think happened there? If you'd have just been a little bit lucky, you would have had 2.12 million and still have withdrawn that 5%. That's the power of sequence of returns risk. So how do you go to mitigate, not eliminate that risk? And I go back to that earlier slide, no matter the weather.
Hey, John, I'm sorry to interrupt, but your audio is getting just a little weak.
Oh, there we go. How's that? Is that better? Maybe I need to move this.
Yes,
Is that better?
That's better now, but it was getting a little choppy.
Okay. All right. Well, let me know if that happens again. But no matter the weather, cash flow is better, right? That's something that if you take nothing else away from today, I want you to take that away from today. The next myth that I want to talk about is annuities. They're too expensive, they're evil, and a lot of really famous people out there will tell you, don't do annuities, don't do life insurance, they're terrible products, they rip you off everything else. Well, here's the deal. It's just like when I walk into my garage, I have like 100 tools in there. Not an exaggeration. I don't use as many of them as I used to, but I love to use power tools. They're just more fun. But sometimes the power tool is not what you need for the job, right? You're going to rip up that screw, you're going to rip up that bolt, or if you're doing some finer work, it's not going to work. You need a different tool. Matter of fact, I counted the other day, I literally have 32 different screwdrivers. They're different sizes, different shapes. Some are Torex, some are Phillips head, some are flathead, 32 of them. And I use them all for various things. Annuity is a tool in the toolbox, and it's a very important tool for most people. Is it something you should have your entire portfolio in? Absolutely not. I do not believe that is the case. Is a life insurance policy something that everyone should have? Most likely not. It's not for everyone. But if you don't have the life insurance, there may be a way to use an annuity, again, to eliminate those negative years. What if you could replace those double-digit negative years with zeros? Oh, here we go again, the power of zero. Let's do a little bit of math with that. What if we take out all the negative years in the S&P 500, and we're going to be expensive here because we're an annuity and you do have to pay for that insurance. So we're going to charge an extra 1.5% on that every year. You're still ahead of the game if you choose the correct annuity. And I will be the first to tell you that annuities are a complement. They don't replace a balanced, diversified portfolio, but the floor of zero protects in down markets. They do not have to be, and this is a myth out there too, that annuities are very low yielding. They can be and often are tied to equity indices, but they are very complex. And there are a lot of folks out there, unfortunately, that will try and convince you to go into one that is not right for you. And again, because they're all tools in different sizes and shapes, and so are you as individuals, you have to pay attention to things like, and you don't have to understand what this means right now, but cap rates. Pay attention to that. Pay attention to what indice you are using. A lot of times you'll see S&P and you assume in your head it's the S&P 500 stock index, but you don't read the rest of what it says, and it's actually some index you've never heard of. So understanding all of those things about annuities are important. In addition to that, if you're in your 50s, 60s, very, very expensive to get long-term care insurance. How do you get it without paying an arm and a leg and probably another finger or two? You can do that with an annuity or a life insurance product. So annuities are more flexible than many realize. They're much more flexible. They have been innovated over the years. Always amazes me, right? That we saw the advent, or I did, the advent of the computer from the typewriter. I even saw the one with the keys that came up and I would type too fast and they would get stuck together. How many people remember that one? Because I was a fast typist, but it didn't work on those things. Now we've got computers, I can type as fast as I want, right? Yeah, exactly. Now we've had computers, then we had the internet, now we've got robots, for Pete's sake, right? And we're talking about quantum computing. Why is it that we think that innovation has not happened in wealth management? And yet we're still using some of those myths and some of those things that we've just heard year after year because, well, our parents did it that way, right? Like the 60-40 portfolio. Now, when I first started my career on Wall Street, I was on the bond desk. So the fixed income bond desk, and the 60-40 portfolio did its job like magic. It was amazing. It's fantastic. Today, 34 years later, it really hasn't worked and done the same job it did back then for at least 10 years, probably closer to 15 to 20 years. So understanding that, and it's still pervasive out there. If you look up the 60-40 portfolio on the internet, you're going to get all kinds of people that will tell you that it works. But if you do the math and you actually look at the performance, it has not helped you at all. I think we've got another poll. Do we have another poll?
We do indeed. So which of these statements do you think is most true, even if you're not 100% sure? Annuities, insurance products are bad investments. Bonds will protect me from running out of money. All mortgages work basically the same. Structured products are risky and only for experts, or none of the above. I'm skeptical of them all.
I'm really curious on this one. Because at the end, if you stay to the end, I think you're going to be really surprised at one of the answers to these questions.
They're coming in here. So we've got 5 of 13. Give you guys another few seconds. And John, just time check. We're at 6:43 Eastern, just so you are aware.
All right. We're going to whiz through the rest of this really quickly, but I know you guys are all busy and I won't keep you past the hour. What do we got there, Bernie?
So it's actually pretty evenly split. 43% said none of the above. They're skeptical of them all.
Yeah, which is fair and probably good, by the way. It is good for sure.
And then we had 29% all mortgages work basically the same, and 29% said structured products are risky and only for experts, and no one voted for the annuities or bonds.
Okay, I can't disagree really with that either, except for the annuities thing. But again, as a tool and a portion, not your entire portfolio, please, for annuities. But this idea that all derivatives are risky comes from a place of 2008, right? That was what brought down the mortgage market and the CMOs and all those things. And that was because they were used incorrectly and people got complacent. Actually, what they should have been used for, and often are, I used to be in charge of risk management. That was my job at Morgan Stanley. And my job was to make sure we did not make money or lose money overnight on a very large portion of assets. So I was the risk management hedging guy, they called it. And I can tell you, I use derivatives every single day, and I was fairly successful at that job. They got more upset with me when I made money one time than when I lost money, because they're like, if you're making that much money, you didn't do something right. So that was the idea. That's the idea behind managing risk. But with derivatives and with this thing called structured products, and again, I think whoever answered yes, that they should only be used by people who really understand them is absolutely correct. Same thing with annuities and life insurance. You do have to know exactly what you're doing with them, but they can offer levels of downside protection you don't get anywhere else and levels of cash flow that you can get nowhere else. And especially when the market's moving sideways or the market's moving down, which is 2 of the 3 ways that it moves, you are getting yourself ahead of the game in a significant way. They can be customizable to exactly what you need if, again, you have the access. Continued, again, it's a risk management tool. Offer against that market volatility, which again, if you go back to our sequence of return conversation, that's what that means. Guards against that sequence of return risk. And it integrates in as a portion of your portfolio, not the whole thing. Again, it's a tool, a single tool in your toolbox, when used by a master craftsman, can create the outcome that you want. Again, knowing the rules, understanding the underlying index or the underlying security, super important. Understanding the credit risk and all the other risks that go along with them, extremely important. But they are a fantastic and powerful tool to use in your wealth management. And this is some of what you can think of. So with stock dividends, you're getting about 2 or 3% for your cash flow, right? If you're really focused on getting that income from stock dividends. Traditional bonds, you might be able to make 5-6%, but they're going to be just as volatile the past several years, just as volatile as stocks. Structured product, 10 to 15% in terms of your income that you can produce, your cash flow that you can produce. So that's the difference that it can make. Some of them, depending on the structure, can be even more than that. It's not about chasing returns. It's about building consistent income and control. So myth number 5, all mortgages are the same. Okay, this is the exciting part, because I was surprised that not more of you said, yeah, all mortgages are the same. Now, I don't make any money on this, but the whole point, right, is that I want you to understand that if you're doing this right, you build a team of people within their zone of genius around you. So if you do ever decide to work with Guardian Rock or somebody like myself, they should be able to put a team around you. They should know people that are great CPAs, great mortgage people, great estate planning people and all that. And as the quarterback, know enough about that to help them ask the right questions. So I don't understand completely why, if you have a high 700, 800 credit score, why you would want a traditional mortgage. There might be a few reasons out there, but if you use the all-in-one mortgage, and again, I don't make any money suggesting this to you other than that it moves you ahead in terms of your wealth management. If you use an all-in-one mortgage, and this is hard to wrap your heads around because we've never seen this before, because the big banks do not do this, and nor do they want you to do this because they lose a lot of money based on their business model. What you do is you consistently pay down your principal first, which lowers your overall interest rate, pays your mortgage down much, much, much faster. And it is not a reverse mortgage. People will think, oh, you're talking about a reverse mortgage. It is absolutely not a reverse mortgage, which is another tool that I don't use very often, but sometimes it can be a good tool in your toolbox. This allows you to pay that interest down first and changes your house into a dynamic asset. So before, could you take your house down and buy bread at the grocery store? No, you can't do that, right? With an all-in-one mortgage, the way it's structured and the way it's set up, that's exactly what you can do. You always have access to the equity in your home, again, if you need it or want it for something. And it's not a HELOC. So people get that mixed up too. Oh, it must be a HELOC. That's not it either. You're consistently paying down the principal. Literally every time you get income, your principal is going down. And again, this is something that I'd love to chat with you about. And I have somebody I'd love to introduce you to that can help you put this together for yourself if you're interested in chatting. So these are your 5 myths. Deferred tax is always good. Not always good, folks. And again, this is based on math. This is not my opinion. This one is actually based on math. Annuities and insurance products are bad. That's the other myth, right? Again, mathematically, that is not the case. Now, people can argue with me about how expensive they are and everything else, but when used correctly, they are not bad, and they are great tools to use in your overall wealth management plan. 60-40 portfolio is going to save you from volatility. Actually, over the last several years, bonds, even treasury bonds, the risk-free assets have moved roughly in line with equity prices. Derivatives and structured products are risky. Actually not when used correctly as a correct tool and by a person who understands them. Number 5, all mortgages is the same. Hopefully you now know that not all mortgages are the same. And again, if you qualify, that can be a very powerful way that you can structure your wealth management. So the bottom line is, and I learned this from my son who runs ultra marathons, and I don't know why. Don't ask me why. I don't know why anybody would do that. But he taught me this when we were getting ready to do a hike up into the Smoky Mountains. And I wanted to bring all kinds of stuff I thought we would need because I'm a planner. So I was loading up my pockets with food, water, with like cool little tools that I had found that are cool for hiking. And he's like, Dad, number 1, you're not an ultra marathon runner. You sit in a chair most of the day. And number 2, you're going to wish you had not brought any of that stuff in about 5 miles. I said, but it's cool. I want to take it. I want to take it. The truth was he was 100% right. I did not want all that stuff. And he thankfully talked me into not bringing it because you want to travel light. In your early years, keep things simple. Keep things as easy as you can, but be careful of oversimplification. The whole idea that I hear a lot, another myth, is that just buy the S&P 500 and you'll be fine. And the truth is that actually does work. If you're like in your younger years and you sort of want to turn the brain off and just do something, you've got a really long run rate, that might be okay for you. When you get into your, say, 40s, even late 30s, you want, especially if you have amassed a fair amount of assets, you want to treat those really well. You want to manage your risk. You want to reduce your taxable footprint for later on, your lifetime taxes. But at the summit, as you start to get higher, what do you begin to see? You begin to see further, you gain some perspective, and above all, you get experience. But the planning part really matters. You don't get to new heights and places where you don't have to pay taxes and how powerful that can be by carrying more. A lot of times it's actually by carrying less and reducing that risk. So if you are interested in learning more about this, because I just scraped the surface, I'm sure if you had 45 minutes or so to tell me everything there is to know about your zone of genius, kind of not possible. So that's not possible for me either. But if you're interested, we actually are happy to send you the Zero Advantage box. Okay. And we've got several things in there that we'll talk about too. But if you're one of the first 10 people to schedule some time with me, and a few of you are already my clients, you can talk with me anytime. I take calls on the weekends and evenings and everything else if you're a client. But if you want to get time on my calendar, you're one of the first 10 people in. We are going to send you this for free. It's got a copy of the book. It's got several different actual written materials, and it's also got a USB you can plug into your port on the side of your computer. There will be videos, there will be audios in case you don't like reading anymore. And there will be all kinds of information kind of curated surrounding the ideas that I've talked about tonight. But if we do have a phone call, and I'd love to chat with you, it'll last about 30 minutes, maybe not even that long. And it's you talk, because it's really about what you want to learn, what your hopes and dreams are. It's not about me. We'll have a real conversation about where you are, what you want. And you're going to, if nothing else, you're going to leave with more clarity than you had before, more insight and direction than when you came on the call. And if you do decide to work with us, then we'll schedule another call. But this call is not about selling you anything. And frankly, I don't make more money or less money depending on, it's not going to make a difference, a significant difference in my life. What I want to do is make a significant difference in your life going forward. You can even take the ideas that I talked to you about and take them to your financial advisor or wealth manager. But again, this is what's in the box. I would love to take any questions that you've got. If we've got a little bit of time, just a little bit of time. So if there's questions that came into the chat, Bernie, let me know.
Yeah,
Anything that came in there.
There were a couple. I think actually Heather may have dropped now, but she said, but putting money into a Roth, you put in tax money. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. You still have to pay your taxes in that year. But everything over and above that, so all the growth, all the income from the time that you make the conversion on is all tax-free to you when it comes out. The traditional IRA or 401k, every dollar that you pull out, you get taxed on.
And she mentioned purchase a tax credit. And that was actually something that I had a question about as well. What does that mean to purchase a tax credit? How does that work?
So there are not-for-profit organizations and there are companies out there that have tax credits that they have earned or been given by the government. And since they're a not-for-profit organization, they can't use them all. So they will sell you those tax credits for a significant discount. So say you've got $100,000 that you're paying in taxes. And this is where it really gets to be powerful. If you have 100,000 or more that you're paying in taxes, you can purchase a tax credit. Sometimes, there are different prices depending on who's selling them and who needs to sell them and who needs to supply and demand. You can potentially get $100,000 tax credit for
We're
$60,000,
losing your audio again, John.
Yeah. I was just saying you could get a tax credit for $100,000 and pay $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 tops for that, and you get $100,000 off your tax bill. So you can see how that can be pretty powerful. The more taxes that you're paying. Yeah,
interesting.
A lot of people think that's hard to do. It's not hard to do. Not hard to find.
Interesting. That's all the chat questions that have come in, but we do have a couple of minutes left. Anybody has any verbal questions they'd like to come off mute and ask John directly? Don, fire away.
Actually, my question is for Richard. Is your middle name Dave Ramsey? My God, you look just like him.
No, it's not.
All right, guys.
He's much thinner. He's much thinner though.
All right, guys. Well, if there's no other questions, we'll give you a couple of minutes back here in your evening. We will get the replay posted for you, links sent out. Book some time with John and see where you guys can go.
All right. Thanks everybody for showing up. And again, let me know what your questions are.
Thanks, John.
Thanks
All
everyone
right.
for joining. Enjoy the rest
See
of the
ya.
day.